Hi, this is Bill for Sparky Channel, and today I have created a diagram to explain how the wiring for marked controlled receptacles works. I currently have a video which shows how to wire these controlled receptacles, but if you are asked for this diagram in order to add clarity to the wiring, and I think that clarity is a very good thing. In fact, the main reason for these marked controlled receptacles is to make it clear to the users of the receptacles which part of a receptacle is operated by a switch. I also have videos on what the NEC says about these controlled receptacles code-wise, and I have another video on how to wire a half-hot receptacle, which is very similar to wiring the marked controlled receptacle. I'll make a playlist for all of these related videos, and I'll put a link in my video description. In this diagram, this is a single pole switch right here, which will operate this half of this receptacle. It's marked, it says controlled right on it, and it has a little power symbol right here. So this is a marked controlled receptacle. This half of the receptacle will operate like a standard receptacle. So here's the power coming into the system, and in my diagram here I have a 12-2, and it would actually be a 12-2 with ground, but I'm not showing the grounds here for clarity, so there isn't too many lines and so forth. And I'm showing the connections outside of the boxes so you can see them easily. Of course, the connections would be made in the boxes which are behind the devices. So here is the power coming into the system. It's a 12-2. Now you'd want to use 12 gauge wire for this because it's going to be running a receptacle. In older houses, generally this is 14-2 cable, and that works too, but I just feel that if you have a receptacle, use 12 gauge wire. First, let's discuss the cabling. This is a 12-2, and it brings the current into the switch box. So we call this power to the switch. If you had power to the receptacle, it'd be a little different. But this is a common way to do it, with the power to the switch. And then here we have a 12-3 cable going from the switch to the receptacle. So that's your cabling. It's quite simple. You got 12-2 coming in and 12-3 going from the switch to the receptacle. Let's start with the black hot coming in, and it's going to come right over here, and it's going to get connected together with two other hot wires. We got one hot wire from this 12-3 cable, and we have another hot wire. This would be a jumper going over to one of the terminals of the single pole switch. It really doesn't matter which terminal of the single pole switch it goes to, but it just goes to one of the terminals. So that's what happens with the black hot wire. It gets hooked together, and it serves the single pole switch as the power for the switch, and this is the power for the portion of the duplex receptacle which is hot all the time. Now let's look at the neutral. So the neutral comes in, and it is not needed for a regular single pole switch. So it just gets hooked together with the white neutral wire of the 12-3 right here. And of course this connection would be in the box behind this switch. So this comes over here, goes through the 12-3 cable, and it is connected to either one of these silver terminals. You see, you have the larger slots here on the left-hand side. That's your neutral. And the silver terminals, that's your neutral. Now on this marked controlled receptacle, there's a tab that connects these two silver terminals. That's why it doesn't matter which one you hook the neutral to. So this is going to serve both portions of this duplex receptacle with a neutral. Now, what about this red wire? What are we doing with it? Okay, this is why we run 12-3 from the switch to the receptacle. The red wire would go to the opposite terminal on this single pole switch. Sometimes on single pole switches, the two terminals are on the same side of the switch, and sometimes they're on the opposite side of the switch. It really doesn't matter. You just hook this red wire to the other brass colored terminal of the single pole switch, and it's carried over to the receptacle through this 12-3, and it comes down here to the controlled portion of the duplex receptacle. Because the marked controlled receptacle comes with no tab on the hot side between the terminals on the hot side, both halves of this duplex receptacle need their own source of power. You see, so when this switch is turned on, the power, that is the current, flows through this red wire, and it heats up, as we say, it heats up the controlled portion of this duplex receptacle. When the switch is turned off, there's no current running through this red wire, so the controlled portion of the duplex receptacle is off. Switch on, power on. Switch off, power off. You see, that's what the red wire is for right here. That's why we run a 12-3 between the switch and the receptacle. So that's it in a nutshell. Power comes in, gets split, and you see this heats up the switch here, but it travels out through the red wire. If the switch is on, then this is on. If the switch is off, this is off. This black wire here heats up this portion of the receptacle all the time, so it's not influenced by this switch at all. And the neutral wires just get hooked together, and it goes over here to either of the silver terminals. So there you go. That's a diagram for marked controlled receptacles. And thanks. I hope this video was helpful.